it's Bethany here. Today I have a very special vlog for you guys. I'm going to be comparing DC versus LA. My most recent trip to LA, I found myself comparing everything to DC. As someone who grew up going to DC very often because of my parents, I experienced a real culture shock in LA. Today I'm going to be talking about the differences that stood out to me the most during this trip. The first experience that I was most excited for was the plane ride. I had never been on a plane and the experience was very useful to me so I could know how to travel alone as an adult. I was lucky to have my professors and friends there to learn how to do all of this for the first time. I looked out the window the entire time at the beautiful towns below me. The flight attendants were so incredibly nice, and once I told them that it was my first time on a plane, they were so shocked. They took me to meet the captain of the plane, who was also shocked to see a first-time flyer at my age. Once we got off, the airport was very overwhelming. While I have never been on a plane before, I have been to Dulles Airport many times to pick up client dogs. It's clean, there are mostly business people looking there, and it's pretty organized. In contrast to LAX, Dulles seems like a small functioning airport. There were thousands and thousands of people in LAX. It was pretty dirty and way more overwhelming than Dulles has ever been to me. It took us 20 minutes to even get out of the pickup spot. On the first full day of our trip, our group went to see Santa Monica Pier. As an East Coast girl, my one item for this trip was that I wanted to see the Pacific Ocean. In comparison to the Atlantic Ocean, it seemed less blue in my opinion, and much colder than I had ever felt at the Atlantic. The beaches were also huge. On the Atlantic Ocean, the actual sand part of the beach is thin most of the time, but in Santa Monica, the beach was huge and had so many activities around. Additionally, I had never seen more shells or rocks on a beach at a single time. Instead of like the Atlantic beaches I've gone to where you have to walk up and down the beach to find some seashells, the Pacific beaches seemed littered with them. I also loved seeing the palm trees. I'd never seen one in person before, and I'm used to the only trees being around being huge with lots of leaves, creating a forest, but the palm trees were tall and skinny, and it did take some getting used to for my brain. I kept thinking that they were streetlights when I would catch a glimpse of them in the corner of my eye. In the Atlantic Ocean, usually the beaches have dunes with bushes and sand, and you're not allowed to go on them, and there's no trees. I loved that I was able to put my feet in the Pacific Ocean, and now I can say that I have touched both oceans. Woo! Another difference between LA and DC was the terrain. There were huge mountains, and there seemed to be mountains in the town. Virginia is described to have rolling hills, and they are smaller and less jagged. There were so many cliffs in LA, and there were mountains in the middle of town. They were completely covered in houses and attractions. In contrast, DC is pretty flat. There are no mountains within eyesight, there are no hills, it's just roads and flat town. This leads me to my last and favorite part of the trip, which was the Griffith Observatory. The Griffith Observatory is an attraction in LA that has telescopes, exhibits, and shows for the public. It overlooks the entire city. It was built in 1935, and the observatory has provided people with a beautiful, free place to see the city. I was in awe of how big everything is. I could see everything, every little house, every mansion, every tall building, where the ocean meets the coast, everything. It reminded me of how grand a city of this caliber exactly is. In DC, you can see the entire city from the Washington Monument, but unlike the Griffith Observatory, you can't see any mountains, just the city. While still beautiful, I love being able to see the ocean, mountains, and city all in one place. I had such an amazing time on this trip. I learned so much about myself and how to travel. After visiting LA, I learned that I kind of prefer LA to DC. I loved the views, how busy it was, how the city was set up, and all of the experiences that it gave me.